Okay. This is the theme or thought that we are pursuing for tonight. And it's entitled Fair or Righteous, Which Is It? Fair or righteous, which is it? Let me start by giving some definitions. The dictionary defined fair as in accordance with the rules or standards. That fair is defined as being in accordance with the rules or standards. That rules are defined as a set of explicit or understood regulations or principles governing conduct within a particular activity. Rules is defined as a set of explicit or understood regulations or principles governing conduct within a particular activity. Rules can also be defined as the exercise of ultimate power or authority over. The dictionary defined righteous as acting in accord with divine or moral law, free from guilt or sin, morally right or justifiable in a righteous decision, arising from an outraged sense of justice or morality. And the reason that I wanted to give those definitions is because in this discussion, I'm arguing that people are more inclined to want fairness than they are righteousness. That they would rather a person be fair than a person be righteous. Which one? Righteousness. Righteousness is defined as acting in accord with divine or moral law, free from guilt or sin. Morally right or justifiable in a righteous decision. How many of us at some time or another has accused someone of not being fair? And how many of us have even gone further and have accused God of not being fair? But the thing we have to be careful for when we talk about fair versus righteousness is that fair has to first understand who set the rules or who set the standard. Because the person who set the rules or set the standards are also the authority over what happens. They have the authority over what is fair. When we were kids, we sometimes were playing in the yard and we were accused of not being fair. But we may have said, this is my game, and I make the rules to my game. Now, you bid whiz player know that on the first thing you establish at the house is, what are the house rules? It doesn't matter if you think that the guaranteed joker is the big joker and the other one is the little joker. If the rules of the house says the guaranteed joker is the little joker, that's how you have to govern yourself in that setting of bid whiz. You all buy that, you bid whiz players? These are the house rules. There are no jokers. These are the house rules. The ace is low and never high. So when you finally get both jokers and the ace, and in your house or in somebody else's house, you have seen this as being a dominating hand, and you go to lay it out there as the winner of a book, and the house person says, no, remember I told you there are no jokers, and aces are never high. They're always low. And that's not fair. But it is fair according to the rules of that house. And when you get back to your house, you can set the rules any way you want to. And it does not matter that there is an overall consensus that there is a big joker and a little joker and an ace and a king and so on, and the ace can be played high or low. It does not matter that might be the consensus all over the world. But whoever set the rules in that house, that's what you have to abide by. So when we would rather live by what is fair, we have to take into consideration those dynamics. Because we as black people were saying it is not fair that we do not have certain rights that everybody else seems to have. And we were even disciplined, chastised, and sometimes killed because we violated the rule. But the rules had been set by someone who felt they had the authority. That did not mean you had to live within those rules. You had to understand, if I don't live within those rules, I am subject to the consequences of not living within those rules. That's why we have to be careful and understand who is setting the rule, who is setting the standard, when we would rather live by what is fair than what is righteous. You can't get mad at somebody who set the rule. Would you buy that? Our democracy says to us, or at least it suggests to us, that we all have a part in setting the rules. And the major way we do that is by our votes. By our votes. By who we put in office, and hopefully they are loyal and representative of their constituents, which we say we are. But sometimes the person that you voted for does not win. And therefore, you don't have the authority in place that you can say you should represent my ideas, my needs, my desires when it comes to setting these rules. In the church, whoever set the rules, if we're talking about fair, whoever set the rules is in authority to make sure that the rules are followed. And if the rules are not followed, there are consequences. Sometimes there is the putting out of office. Sometimes there is the dismissing from the congregation membership. There are consequences to not following the rules, even in the church, when we operate off of what is fair. There's nothing that governs what is fair, but the authority and the power of the person who sets the rule. You buy that? Sometimes we say, God is not fair, that he did not do for me or with me what he did to my neighbor or my best friend. We had the same situation, and God dealt with this person in what I thought was a more favorable way than he did with me. And why did he choose to do him different than what he did me? He is not fair. When you look at that Matthew text, you know it by heart, I'm sure. The man went to the marketplace, and there were people just standing around. Now, note, they are just standing around. They don't have anything to do. They are not in the authority. Nothing to do. So he says, go work in my vineyard, and I will pay you for the day's wage. And he even says to them how much that will be. And so they went and they worked. But he went back later on, and there were still others standing there. So he tells them, go and work in my vineyard. And he says to them, I will give you this for your day's wage. And then here it comes all the way down, and you can read the story, all the way down to the end of the day. And he goes and he finds some still standing there. And he says to them, go work in my vineyard, and this is what I'll give you for working in my vineyard. Well, when it came time to pay, everybody came up. Everybody came up. And he started handing out the day's wage. And when they looked at it, everybody had the same amount. Somebody read what those who had been there all day said. The first ones. What verse are you?
The 12th verse.
Okay, go back up to 10.
But when the first came, they supposed that they should have received more, and they likewise received every man a penny. And when they had received it, they murmured against the good man of the house,
Okay.
saying, these last have brought but 1 hour, and thou hast made them equal unto us, which have borne the burden and the heat of the day.
Okay, hold right there. Who of us would have thought it right to receive the same money after working all day as he who only worked an hour? Now, let's be honest. We ain't going for that, right? Let's just be honest. Well, some of us might. Some of us might say, okay, I'll take it. Even knowing that he told us how much he would give us for the day's work. And he was honest. He was right in what he said he would give us. He gave us exactly that. But the thing that angered us was those who only worked 1 hour got that same amount. And that just did not seem fair. And so they complained. Don't we do that with God? I've been as faithful to you as anyone. I've worked in your vineyard like everybody else. And when it comes to my blessings are shorter than somebody else's blessing. Now let me go back and do some qualifying. The man does not say, well, you know, he is actually a little bit more righteous than you or right than you. He is a better person than you. He ain't been in no trouble, so I wanted to walk. He didn't say any of that. He just said, work, and this is what I'll give you. Sometimes we say it's not fair because we believe God is holding against us something that we did, something that we've done, and we said, forgive me. And then when it comes to blessing time, he cut me short. And we said, well, why are you holding over me what I did by taking some of the money or some of the blessing that I should have got? Now, do you think God does that? Anybody, you think God does that? Do you think God, when he's getting ready to send you your blessing, he says, oh, wait a minute. You lied the other day, so I'm going to cut off some of it. Oh, yeah, okay. All right. You committed this sin. I'm going to cut off some more. So, oh, wait a minute. You think God does that? We do sometimes. But God does not do that. This man didn't say who was more qualified, who worked the hardest. None of that was taken into consideration. The thing was, you work, you get this. Now remember, Christ is telling this story for a reason. Okay, go ahead. Who was that? Ava, go ahead and read on.
But he answered one of them and said, friend, I do thee no wrong. Didst not thou agree with me for a penny?
Okay, hold right there, Ava. Friend, I do you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a penny? Did you not agree with me for a penny? And by your agreement, you accepted the terms that I gave you. And I'm only responding to the terms that we agreed upon. And I'm going to say two things right here. First one is, you got to be careful when you give your life to Christ, because the life no longer belongs to you. When you give your life to Christ, you are agreeing with him that you are going to be a certain way, do a certain thing, because your life belongs to him. You are agreeing with him. In your agreement, you have to understand what is happening when it comes down to payday. The second thing I'm going to say about that is, he said, friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Now, this is all he's saying. I'm not concerned about being fair to you. I'm concerned about being righteous. And in your life, you have to understand that God only deals with you in righteousness. Now, let's go back. He certainly has the authority to set the rules, right? And let's say he did that, right? These are rules and standards by which we should live, right? He did that, right? Have you ever noticed sometime that even God does not judge us by the very laws and standards that he has set forth? when it comes to our blessing? You ever noticed that? Huh? Anybody ever noticed that? If he was only going to go by the rules and standards that he set forth that we violated, then that means we don't get the blessing, does it? But in his righteousness, Cecil Washington said, he looks past my faults and he sees my need. In his righteousness, he sees that you need the same penny, although you ain't been here long, that those who have been here forever are getting. And how many times have we challenged God? I've been on this Christian road for all these years. And here come this woman up in here, ain't been in the church for 3 years, and she's already the president. You all buy that? I've been waiting my turn. And my time came for me to be the coordinator of the youth pageant. And somebody who don't even know what the pageant is about became the coordinator. You ain't right, God. You ain't fair. Then we got mad at the preacher. We got mad at the new coordinator. Y'all don't have to agree with me. I know I'm right. Got mad at the new coordinator. Tried to tear up the pageant. Because it was not fair. You are not fair. I've been here. It was my time. So, God said, but even though I set the rules and standards, even though I have the authority, there's one thing I got over you that you cannot even begin to equal. I made a world. And I even made you. You can't equal that. You can't speak to darkness and bring light. You can't do that. You can't order an earth that's covered by water to split up and dry land appears. You can't do that. The thing I'm trying to point with that last statement is these men, all of them had to understand that their blessing came from the Lord who went by their loafing place and told them, go make some money. In other words, go get a blessing. They were, did the writers, I thought he said they were standing idle. You know what idle means, don't you? Third verse. Standing idle in the marketplace, ain't doing nothing but wasting time. And you know how we are. If somebody ain't pulling his load, you gone. But the point is, God says, I'm not going to deal with you in fairness. I'm going to deal with you in righteousness. I'm going to be right toward you. Because when we're dealing in fairness and we set that rule, any violator of that rule is not going to be treated kindly. And sometimes we make the rules and the standard to such that nobody could possibly meet them. So we ain't got to be fair. We ain't got to do what's right. You all buy that? Sometimes we can make the person that we wish to be in relationship with meet such high standards that they cannot possibly meet. And therefore, No. Any of your children ever said to you, you're not fair? What'd you tell them? I ain't got to be fair. You sleeping in my house, you eating my food. If I tell you to do something, you can't do nothing but do it. Don't talk to me about no fair. But even parents say, I will govern you in righteousness. That's a good parent. In righteousness. Don't put you on the spot. Anybody had two of your kids do the same thing and you only whipped one of them and let the other one go, and the one who got the whipping charged you with, you love him more than you love me? That ever happened? Is that what you did? Did you not whip that kid because you loved him more? You didn't do it for that reason, did you? That kid needed something different. He needed something else. And I try to tell parents, like I tell you, I am the world's best parent because I made so many mistakes when I was parenting. I know what not to do and what to do now. But you saw, let me go back. I tell, especially in dealing with young boys, sometimes that young boy don't need a belt. He needs a hug. He's already dealing daily with all the struggles of violence and having to protect turf and take bullying and all that. And then he comes home and you're, if you allow me, bullying him also. Sometimes it's hard for him to decipher in all of that. Sometimes it just, all he wants you to do is just grab him and just hug him. And when you are parenting righteously, you understand that. And you hug him instead of whip him. You hug her instead of disciplining her with some punishment. Because that's what they needed. So he said, oh wow. Take what is yours and go your way. I wish to give to this last man the same as to you. Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things? Or is your eye evil because I am good? So the last will be first and the first last, for many are called, but few chosen. And I was sitting, it was Sunday at Philippi, and I heard that and I wrote it down in my phone. Because I got to go look up that last statement. Many are called, but few are chosen. What's the difference? Now, I don't know that yet because I haven't looked it up yet. But there is a difference. Many are called, but few are chosen. What's the difference with that? But we'll get that some other time. Okay. And I got to hear it because I'm almost out of time. Look at some of the key issues we are facing in our nation today. The U.S. Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein is subject to be fired or dismissed. You've got 3 ladies who have come out against the supposedly hopeful next Supreme Court Judge Kavanaugh. We all saw on yesterday where Bill Cosby was sentenced 3 to 10 years. And we are trembling in our boots about this midterm election. Some of us are even hoping that the Republicans lose the power in the Senate with this midterm election. But these are situations in our nation right now where we are moving with them or against them, not in righteousness, but in fairness. And my argument tonight is that's going to cause our demise. That's going to defeat us. That's going to undo us. We should not be addressing these situations by whether they are being treated fairly or not. We should be dealing with them as to whether they are being dealt with in a righteous way. Let me go back and define righteous again. Acting in accord with divine, that's God. Divine. What is God thinking about Mueller and Rosenstein? What is God thinking about? Where does God want? How many of us have sat down and said, Lord, what do you want to do with this? What do you want to do with Kavanaugh? Anybody said that? Or was our prayer, please don't let this man be confirmed? Anybody want to help me real quick? And it's 7, I just got about 6 minutes. Is our prayer, what do you want to do with this man? How many of us said it is so unfair what they did to Bill Cosby? With the president and all these congresspersons who have been charged with the same thing, who probably are guilty of the same thing, did nothing happen to them. It's so unfair. Did anybody ask, Lord, what are you doing with Bill Cosby's situation? Or, let me back up and do it even better. Do we think that God was righteous toward Bill Cosby? You certainly can't think he was fair, right? Or can you? Now you know what everybody else been doing. Ain't nothing happened to them, so you can't be jumping on fair. Go ahead. Now, we have to understand that we will, whatsoever you sow, you shall reap. We have to understand that. The thing we have to also understand is everybody don't reap to the same degree. They don't reap to the same degree. They don't suffer the same punishment. God does what he wants to do, and why he does it, I am not going to be calling myself brave enough to explain that or even challenge that. Matter of fact, even discuss that. Because I don't know the mind of God. All I can do is understand why. Daddy said, I go and I visit a sick person. And I pray. And I go right down the block and visit another sick person with the same situation. And I pray. And then I get a call from the first one that said he died. And the second one has said he's going to live. But they had the same condition. Why did God take one and not the other? And he said, I had to conclude it was none of my business. Because God can do whatever he want to do. Because he always act in righteousness. Righteousness. Not what is fair. And I said, well, okay, I know it's none of your business, but don't it bother you a little bit? He said, but how do I not know? That person that he took may have said to God, I'm tired. I'm ready to go. And I know I'm being, may have said that. But my point is, God is going to act in righteousness. And let me tell you, when he acts in righteousness, you may get off. But later on down the road, righteousness will still do what righteousness wants to do. Righteousness will do that. And you will suffer whatever righteousness has determined. That man said, "Is it not lawful for me to do what I wish with my own things?" And God can do to you whatever he wishes because you are his own things. He made you. But now, the lesson for this evening is simply this. In our dealings or our relationship with each other, we've got to stop approaching this with the attitude or spirit of fairness. We're going to lose out. We've got to approach it in the spirit of righteousness, even if they don't deserve it. If your righteous spirit says otherwise, that's what you got to do. Because one passage said, okay. Did I write it down? Okay. It's in Leviticus 19 and 15. You shall do no injustice in judgment. You shall not be partial to the poor, nor honor the person of mighty. In righteousness you shall judge your neighbor. In righteousness. Now listen to what he said here. He says, you shall not be partial to the poor, nor honor the person of the mighty. You can't just feel sorry for him and say, I'm going to do it because I feel sorry for him. Or you can't say, well, this is a person of power and prestige and you know, I need to be kind. God said, do not do that. He said, in righteousness, you shall judge your neighbor. In righteousness, not in fairness, but in righteousness, you shall judge your neighbor. I'm going to go back to the definition because it's important. Righteousness, acting in accord with divine or moral law. And listen to what this other part say, free from guilt or sin. Free from guilt or sin. You can't let your prejudice, you can't let your hatred, you can't let your dislike determine how you respond to this person. Well, you know what? What he did to me, whatever I do to him is fair. God said, you can't do that. You have to judge him in righteousness. Because that's what we want God to do to us. So we have to stop determining our relationship with people based upon fairness and base it upon righteousness, because I guarantee you, if you do it on fairness, you will always find an excuse or reason to not act right toward that person. I'm going to let that one soak because you should have heard it. You will always find a reason or an excuse to not treat that person as he or she should have been treated. Look at our marriages. how much they are determined by what is fair in the marriage. If I do this for you, you ought to do this for me. But does not marriage never consider me? It should. Never consider me. Marriage should always consider my partner in marriage. Well, that ain't right. That ain't fair. Why can't I ever take care of me? Why can't I ever think about me? Because you don't have to. Because in his righteousness, when you are living in God, he always takes care of you. But he uses you to take care of somebody else. That didn't make sense, did it? But we're so busy about our comfort and our fairness, our being treated fair, that we fail to understand, man, you know what? God already got me covered. Already got me covered. I need to spend all of my energy on the other person. I ain't going there because, let me tell you, I'm tired of being the one who's doing everything. I'm tired of being the one who has to go without. I'm tired of being the one who get shortchanged. I'm tired. No, the reason you're tired is because you are not doing or you are not in where you should be. You're spending your energy. You're spending your strength. See if you allow me. Hating, and I use a very strong word there, when you should have been loving. We get worn out hating folk. Hate wears you out. Love does not. Y'all buy that? Blessed are those, this is Psalms 106:3. Blessed are those who keep justice and he who does righteousness at all times. And I'm going to end with this one. Micah 6:8 is one of my favorite scriptures. Micah 6:8 said, he has shown you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. In order for you to do that, you must live in righteousness. That don't mean that you're perfect or that you're always doing right, but you live in righteousness. When you make a mistake, you're like David. You run to your knees and say, I messed up. How much easier? I'm not trying to say who of those persons I name are guilty and who are not. I ain't got time for all that. But if he is guilty, how much better it would have been for Kavanaugh just to say, hey, I was 17 years old. I did some stupid things. I messed up. But I apologize for him, and I'm trying to go on down the road with life. I'm saying that if he's guilty, because they hate, well, what 17-year-old don't do that? What high school boy don't do that? When you go beyond the person's wishes, you have offended. So let's live in righteousness and stop living in what is fair, because you ain't going to win. Because the people who are setting the rules and the standards for fairness most often don't even have you in mind. They're doing it for their sake. And I know I get blasted out when I say this, but I say it all the time. It's hard to be somebody who make the rules. Because as soon as you come up with a comfortable challenge, they change the rule. And I'm through. So what now? Exodus. Oh, the last scripture.
I'm sorry, I was trying to wait till you finish. I didn't want to interrupt you.
The last before Micah.
I guess
Oh.
so. No, I got Micah 6 and 8. One before Psalms 106.
Leviticus 19:15.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. Huh?